Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Winning with Franklin Whole Homes aPower S. Just a few quick items before we get going today. So during the webinar, all attendees will be muted for best audio quality. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to type in your questions. They will be monitored. This webinar will be recorded and shared with all of you within a few days. And it is my pleasure to introduce today's presenters, David Tobin and Abby Iyer. Abby is a product manager at Franklin Whole Home, where he oversees product operations, engineering across Canada and the US East Coast. Over the past 2.5 years, he has been involved in expanding both those markets and leading Franklin Whole Home's virtual power plant and grid services initiatives. He holds a degree in electrical engineering with a focus on solar cell manufacturing. Outside of work, Abby enjoys spending time outdoors, playing sports, and cheering on his favorite football team, the Arsenal. David is a product manager at Franklin Whole Home, where he oversees product operations, engineering across Canada and the central US from Houston, Texas. Over the past 3 years, he has been involved in leading product development for new homes construction and expanding the market across the central region of the US. He holds a degree in chemical engineering with a focus on utilities and renewable energy. Outside of work, David enjoys spending time working out, attending EDM festivals, gardening, and watching sci fi television shows. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Abhi to get us started. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a really good intro. I really appreciate that, Tatum. Can you hear me okay and see the slides?
Yes.
Hi, awesome. Perfect. So thank you all for your time today. I know everyone's busy this time of the year with holidays also coming up. So really appreciate you spending your time with the Charge Solar team and the Franklin team. Again, like I said, my name is Abby. I live in Philadelphia. And before I get onto the presentation, thanks, David. I just want to let you know, again, we'll certainly save a lot of time towards the end for questions. But if you have any pressing questions that need any answers, again, David Tobin here is going to be constantly monitoring the Q&A chat as well. So please feel free to post your questions there, and we'll certainly have enough time towards the end for any questions. So what we'll do today is, again, the goal is to give you a good introduction on who we are, what we do at Franklin, just kind of our background here. But most of the presentation here today is going to be focused on the aPower S, in specific, an overview, the technical specifications, the use cases, and how do you design the aPower S. We'll also have a few slides that actually talk through the installation of the aPower S. But again, please keep in mind that we will have multiple webinars or trainings in the future as well, where we focus on specific topics, sales, design, engineering, installation. So again, this one here is just a comprehensive overview on everything, but we'll certainly be focusing a lot more of these trainings as we continue to work with Charge Solar. Right, awesome. So let's get started. Again, Franklin, we were founded in 2019. We did not start with our US operations up until 2022. So we spent the first few years really focused on understanding installer pain, customer demand, and doing a few beta installs. We didn't start our Canadian operations up until last year. So we've just wrapped up close to about a full year of our operations in the Canadian market, but we've been more active in the last 6 months. In Canada market, our warehouse operations in Canada are actually based in Brampton, while our headquarters for North America is based in San Jose. Today, Franklin is operational in 3 different countries, the US, Canada, and the Australian market. The Australian market is a separate division of Franklin. The US market and the Canada market are all part of the North American operations. We have close to over 400 employees, with most of them, just turn off this chat. Oops. All right. Can you see my screen again?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Yeah, so we have over 400 employees, with majority of our employees really focused on R&D. So we are an R&D heavy company, and this really comes from the way how we build our products. But again, I like to call ourselves not as a battery manufacturer. We are a home energy management solution. As you might be aware already, every time you attend one of these large conferences, you will see a lot of battery manufacturers, and every time you go to a new conference, you'll see more manufacturers, right? So safe to assume that the battery space is actually hitting its tipping point, and it's relatively easy to build a battery. I think the value and secret sauce lies on what you do with the battery. And this is essentially where Franklin has shined since day one. Again, we are still new player in this industry, but we've quickly risen to being one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing residential energy storage manufacturers. We still operate only in the residential space. So 120, 240, 120, 208 are the only applications. We are not in the commercial, small scale commercial or three phase as yet. We have over 3,200 certified installers, all through US and Canada. Again, our Canadian operations are relatively new, so we're closing on about 100-ish installers in the Canadian market. Certainly have a lot more with regards to market penetration and really providing that solution for the Canadian market. Do want to mention, again, one thing that you would find with Franklin is we listen to our customers, we answer our calls, right? And again, in this industry, we are so used to getting no's. And I think this is really something that we can change with Franklin because we are really nimble. We are still startup and really focus on the installers and the customers. So for each one of our installers and distributors, you typically have at least 3 dedicated points of contact. And this is in addition to our 1800 support line. So we have a regional sales manager, technical account specialist, and service specialist, which is what David Tobin and I really manage on the technical and service. We do have a regional sales manager as well. I don't know if Frank is on the call, but yeah, Frank Cortez is our sales manager for the Canadian operations. Sweet. So I kind of love and hate this slide, right? Because we never made it to the Times Magazine's cover, but we certainly made it on Times Magazine's list of the fastest growing clean energy companies in the space there. But again, this here is certainly something that we are proud about, right? For a startup company to come out of nowhere and get to a 10% plus market share in the US market and the Canadian market as well. Again, this data here is largely just for the US market. We don't have a similar market or a similar presence, if I can be honest, in the Canadian market as yet. The goal is to continue growing that Canadian market and get to being the top ESS solution provider in the Canadian market as well. But here you can see in the US market where we started our operations in 2022. Since then, we've quickly risen to being a top 3 residential energy storage manufacturer. We are at 11% market share. I think we're going to close on being top 3, if not top 4 residential energy storage manufacturer in the US market. All right, so this is an important one, right? Because it really talks through what all products do we have in offering. Again, you won't see a long list of products because we really focus on one thing, which is providing really reliable, flexible solutions for energy freedom. So the one on the left here is our aGate. The aGate is our MID or microgrid interconnect device. This is as good as your transfer switch or your, so to say, your gateway, if you could put it that way. This is where your power sources are going to be aggregated. The aPower 2 is our AC coupled battery solution, while the aPower S is our DC coupled battery solution capable of AC coupling as well. Right, so we'll certainly talk a lot about the aPower S here on today's presentation, but I do want to point out that this is probably for the very first time that you have an offering which is a pure play on AC coupling, which is the aPower 2. So your customers from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or even further who've had solar PV, but now are considering batteries because cost of electricity is only in one direction, time of use, resiliency, less dependence on the grid, you can certainly AC couple that PV system to the aPower 2 solution here. While for new homeowners who are looking for new PV and battery, we have the aPower S, which is the DC coupled solution. We have few more products in the pipeline. Again, the meter adapter controller is not currently available in the Canadian market because this is basically based off utility approvals, but this is similar to the Tesla backup switch or other solutions that you might be familiar with. But again, the Mac is our solutions to the meter adapter controller. What we also will have available in early Q1 or Q2 is going to be the aHub, which we'll certainly we'll certainly spend some time on the aHub in the last few slides. All right, so let's get into the talk of the presentation, the aPower S. So kind of why we built on the aPower S was essentially trying to really streamline installation, cut down installation cost for the installer, but really focusing on a much more elegant, all-in-one, cost affordable solution for customers, right? So the aPower is an all-in-one system, right? It's a DC coupled battery, which means it has ability to have a hybrid inverter, which behaves both as PV as well as battery inverter. So it's almost like a two-in-one. If you could say, and all of that is actually put into a single box, right? So the battery inverter, the hybrid inverter, the battery cells, the BMS, all of it is in that single box there, which is the aPower S unit. All you need with the aPower S is potentially the A gate or the Mac, whichever is approved by the utility. In most cases for Canada right now, we're certainly going to be focusing on the A gate. So basically, all you need for any standard Franklin aPower S install is the A gate, the aPower S, and then any additional accessory that you may require. The aPower S works in tandem with the aPower 2 as well. We'll talk more about how you can actually set up the aPower S with the aPower 2 for additive capacity and power. But yes, the aPower S can be AC coupled with the aPower 2 unit, right? We are not going to discontinue anytime the aPower 2 unit. You will have access to both a pure play on AC coupled as well as DC coupled solution, the aPower 2 and the aPower S under one roof. So let's talk more about specifications. I know a lot of you are interested on what the aPower S is capable of delivering. So the aPower S here, like I said, has the built-in integrated PV inverter, right? Which basically means you no longer need MLPE type solutions in the roof, right? Because you are now essentially leaning on the hybrid inverter and our MPPT algorithms as far as string management optimization goes. You can land up to 20 kW of PV-DC to a single aPower S. What that basically means is you can land up to 4 MPPTs, which is going to be 15 amps per string. As far as the overall acceptable voltage ranges go for the entire system, that's going to be 60 to 600 volt DC. Pretty standard with regards to what you see in the industry today here. The aPower S rocks the same warranty as the aPower 2, right? So it has a 15-year warranty, no cycle count, or a 60 megawatt hours of throughput, right? This actually puts us as one of the strongest warranties in the entire residential energy storage space. The reason I say that is, yes, you may encounter other battery manufacturers that have this 15-year mention, but if you read the fine print on their warranty documentation, what's something you would also observe is they typically would have associated cycle count. So it's typically 15 years or of X number of thousand cycles, 6,000, 8,000, whichever comes first is how warranty gets defined. You will find no mention of cycle count anywhere on Franklin's documentation, right? Again, doesn't affect the warranty. It's just 15 or 60 megawatt hours, whichever comes first is how we define warranty. The battery does have 15 kilowatt hours of total usable capacity. So 15 is what the homeowner gets access to. We do have an additional 1.1 kWh. So the battery is actually 16.1 kWh. However, 15 is what the homeowner has access to. The 1.1 kWh that we have is purely reserved for black start purposes. As far as continuous power output goes, it's 10 kW of continuous power output from the aPower S unit. the system certainly does have the ability to max to 11.5 kW of continuous power output. However, it'll do that only when there is PV available. Both the aPower S and the aPower 2 can also be configured in multiple power output settings. So we call it power control systems or PCS. So you can certainly derate the continuous power output of the battery if needed. Worked with a few installers where there's some restrictions coming from ESAs with regards to how much kW that your entire unit can actually put out, especially in the case of multiple batteries. So we have those capabilities. But again, the thing to keep in mind is 10 kW continuous is what is going to be on the aPower S data sheet. We do have mention of 11.5, but that's only when there is PV available. Like I said earlier, we are strictly residential. So both the aPower 2 and the aPower S are only going to be for split phase 240, 208 configurations. We do not have a true three-phase solution as yet, but we can certainly support small scale CNI as long as it's the two legs of the three legs, which is what you're actually backing up. So that's the 208 configuration here. Uh, Doing a deeper dive on some of these specs here, right? The reason why we came with the aPower S when we already have a rock solid battery in the aPower 2 is just wanted to focus on simplifying and essentially providing homeowners more options when it comes to finding the right choice of PV and ESS system. So the aPower S here is certainly going to be a big value add for installers who are essentially working on all-in-one systems. We still have under 15 minutes of commissioning. I know time is money. So the goal here is to ensure that you as the installer are able to wrap up your system installation, commission the system, wrap it quick, and get back to your next job, right? So certainly have quick commissioning, and it's really intuitive when it comes to our commissioning. So if you've not looked at the Franklin system or our Franklin app, certainly recommend you downloading the demo version of the app that gives you a good insight on what you should be expecting. Uh, we do have 4 MPPTs here. Again, speaking more on for the design folks here, 4 MPPTs, which is 15 amps per string. If you do have bifacial or larger modules, which have an IMP larger than 15 amps, say 17 amps or 18 amps, we're still going to be limiting it to 15 amps. At that point, you're just going to be focusing on the string voltage calculations there. But again, majority of the residential modules that we see are mostly anywhere between 425 to 440 watt ranges or 450 watt ranges, which basically also implies that your IMP is anywhere between 10 amps to 13 amps. So should be fine. But again, I am familiar with a lot of 500 wattage and larger modules, which may have an increasingly higher IMP. Right now, what the aPower S is going to support is 4 MPPTs and 15 amps per string. The round trip efficiency on the aPower S is 90.5%, right? So it certainly is higher compared to other battery solutions here. One thing I do want to stress here is the charging power. So like I said, it's a 15 kWh capacity battery, but has an 8 kW of charging power, which basically puts this battery as one of the fastest charging batteries in the industry. You can top off the entire aPower S and unit in under 2 hours as long as you have 8 kW of power source generation available. We spoke about warranty here. I do want to talk about the temperature range. So both the aPower 2 and the aPower S can be uh, installed within temperature ranges of negative 20 degrees Celsius to 55 degrees Celsius. Again, this is the temperature operation range of the cells. So not necessarily the ambient temperature. The cell temperatures during winters could be a few degrees higher than the ambient temperature, especially if the batteries have been cycling, so charging or discharging. So certainly keep that in mind. The other thing to also keep in mind is every single one of these batteries has a built-in heating blanket, which has been pre-installed in every single one of the aPower 2 and the aPower S units. We have two 220 watts, about 440 watt heating blanket or heating strips, which are built into these solutions. The heating blankets come online automatically based off some temperature thresholds that they need to hit. So you don't have to, or neither does the customer have to turn on those heating blankets. They turn on automatically and are optimized for good performance, right? So just want to ensure that you and your customers are aware of that. The heating blanket will always look for PV first, but if there's not enough PV, then the heating blanket will look for grid. And then lastly, if this is during an outage and you don't have enough PV or the grid, because it's an outage, then the heating blanket is essentially going to be leaning on the battery. Now, certainly, we don't want the heating blankets to draw a lot of power from the battery. So you would see limited operations for the heating blanket, especially during an outage if enough PV is not available. But the heating blanket is optimized for consumption and ensures that it does not parasitically draw power from the battery. The aPower S and the aPower 2 units do not have any moving parts. So we've gotten rid of the fans from the aPower S unit, right? This is largely to improve thermal reliability, but also any early failures, typically with any laptops or computers, right? We typically see fans end up becoming a central point of failure. And it needs to be replaced. You will not have any of those issues with the aPower 2 or the aPower S unit. So the aPower S, actually, as a matter of fact, I should have updated this slide here, but we wrapped up our very first aPower S install in Canada on an off-grid site. This is not that picture. I'm still waiting to get the full marketing pictures from that install. But yes, aPower S has been installed in Canada already. What you see here are some of the pictures that we've wrapped up here in the US. So this here, again, the reason I put this out is just to show you the form factor of the aPower S, just the connections for the aPower S here as well. It's really streamlined. You'll see as far as connections go. The aPower S just it's a little heavy battery, but there's a good reason to why the aPower S is actually that weight. It's close to about, I think, 180 to 185 kgs, so about 385 pounds. And it's largely to the way how the battery is actually structured. It's a high capacity battery. It does not have any moving parts or fans. So it certainly is something which you need to keep in mind with regards to installing these batteries. Ensure you have the right tools, right? We have a Franklin dolly as well that you could certainly use when it comes to installing these batteries. But again, these batteries are heavy. Ensure you're preparing in advance when it comes to installing these batteries. A few more installs that we've wrapped up here, right, on the aPower S here. Again, they can be installed indoors or outdoors, right? Which is why another thing that I wanted to depict here on some of these pictures. But just for designers in the room or electricians in the room here, this is what the inside wiring compartment of the aPower S looks like. Right on the left side is where you have the AC output. This is where you're going to have your terminations to the A gate here. The aPower S and the aPower 2 communicate with the A gate through CAN bus. So your CAN communication, Cat5, Cat6 communication cabling is essentially going to be from the A gates out, CAN out terminal to the CAN in of the aPower S here. And then you can essentially daisy chain as many batteries as you can. So this is why we have multiple CAN ports here on the aPower S. On the right side is where you're going to be landing your PV terminals. So this is where you're going to have output of your PV going through the transmitter or the outdoor kit and then landed on the strings here. We do supply power to the transmitter units, which brings me to the next topic, which is certainly important. And please, please, please work with Charge Solar to ensure you have your rapid shutdown solution, especially for applicable scenarios, roof mount or other applications where you do require rapid shutdown. So when the aPower S is going to be launched, right, or it's available right now, it's launched, it's going to be compatible with AP Smart and Tigo. So you have the choice as an installer to choose either AP Smart or Tigo, whatever is your preferred rapid shutdown solution. What you need is those module level rapid shutdown, and then you also need the outdoor kit. So in the form of AP Smart, you typically have a transmitter and a transformer as well. And all that we provide is 240-volt AC output to the outdoor kit. So the 240-volt AC from here gets terminated to the transformer. The transformer then converts that to 12-volt DC, which is all that the transmitter can support. So please do not connect the power supply from the aPower S directly to the transmitter. That is certainly not good. You're going to blow out the fuses. But yeah, just keep that in mind to have the outdoor kit and work with Charge Solar when it comes to procuring AP Smart or Tigo. We are also working on our own rapid shutdown solution. However, our solution is not going to be available anytime the second half of 2026. So for the first half of next year, your solutions for rapid shutdown, whenever applicable, is going to be AP Smart or Tigo, and in specific, these specific SKUs. Right. So with all that said, this is what we believe an average aPower S install is going to look like. PV landed on the aPower S. The aPower S landed on the ESS breaker on the A gate here, which is for 60 amps. Again, the aPower S with 10 kW and 11.5 kW continuous basically means it needs to be landed on a 60 amp breaker. And then certainly this combination is built for whole home backup. But again, you do have the ability to do partial home backup or also have critical loads panel or non-essential loads as well. So you have a lot of flexibility with regards to what you can do with a gate, right? As far as whole home, partial home, or load management is concerned. For the designers in the room here, real quick, this is what a single line diagram of the aPower S looks like. So you have PV landed through the specific uh, RSD transmitter kit, landed on the aPower S, and then the output of the aPower S is now landed on that ESS breaker on the A gate, and it's going to be on a 60 amp breaker. If you have multiple aPower S units, right, you certainly, depending on the number of units that you have, you can land them on the backed up lux of the A gate. But this ESS breaker here on the A gate is rated for 125 amps. So it can support up to 2 batteries. But if it's going to be more than 2 batteries, then you are going to be essentially aggregating all of your batteries to a generation panel or a battery combiner panel. The output of that battery combiner panel is going to be landed on the backup lux of the A gate. And you will require backup expansion lug kit, which is an additional accessory. That's how you are going to be double stacking that backup lux for generation panel as well as loads that actually needs to be backed up. So for that backup expansion lug kit, please work with Charge Solar. It is an additional accessory, so you would need to procure that in advance of your install. So what I'll do here is let's change directions here and let's talk through what use case scenarios do you typically encounter for the aPower S. So clearly, if you're working with a home where there's a ground mount or really large PV system, which is in excess of 20 kW, then you certainly are looking at multiple aPower S units. However, the most common use case scenario that you're going to be encountering, right, especially because an average system size in both the US and Canada varies anywhere between 10 to 12 kW of PV AC. So if that's still the case for most of your installs, then you're going to land all of that PV on the aPower S. And that aPower S now is going to be AC coupled with the aPower 2 unit. And the magic of this combination is going to give you access to 21.5 kW of total continuous power output from those two batteries combined, and a total of 30 kWh of energy capacity, right? And again, 21.5 kW is more than enough for an average Canadian home. And the reason why we actually headed in that direction is largely because we're seeing more and more homes in Canada getting electrified. We're seeing more EVs, one, two, or multiple EVs in a home. We're seeing more homeowners pull the trigger on installing heat pumps. So we certainly see whole home electrification as a central theme across homes in Canada and the US as well. And again, the goal here with the aPower as an aPower 2 unit is to essentially future proof your installations, right, for the homeowners. So certainly you are getting a lot of value from this combination. And again, if you ask me how many batteries can I do, Abby, you can do up to 15 batteries in parallel to a single agate. So you certainly have that flexibility of adding as many batteries as you can. At this point, the largest Franklin installation, which is actually on a previous gen battery, is a 16 battery at a residential property in Texas. And that's the largest system. With an aPower 2, we have seen a pure off-grid system with 12 of the aPower 2 batteries. So again, if we have installers in the room here who love records and love to break records, let me know. Happy to work with you on designing larger systems. We do off-grid systems really well. And the fun part is you still have access to the same 15-year no cycle count warranty for your off-grid systems, right? So this is certainly putting out as one of the strongest warranties for both grid connected as well as off-grid systems. Right. So certainly an important one. Again, not all batteries are created equal, right? And if you see the reason why we're able to pack a lot of these, you know, features in that unit is starting from the cells itself, right? So, like I said, not all batteries are created equal. The cells that we use on both the aPower 2 and the aPower S units are prismatic lithium iron phosphate based LFP cells, right? And these cells are actually coming from CATL. So, for those of you who are not aware of CATL or CATL, CATL is the world's largest lithium iron phosphate battery manufacturer, right? I think, if I remember their last year's presence, they had close to about 38 to 39% market share when it comes to manufacturing. So it's safe to say that the world's largest lithium-ion battery manufacturer is actually behind Franklin's warranty, right? Which is why I continue to stress on the fact that we are built different. We have the strongest warranty. We offer more kWh, right? All of this basically means that while on paper, the aPower 2 and the aPower S units may look higher dollars than an average battery, but it's to the fact that the economics, if you do for dollar per kWh over the lifetime of the entire unit, you'll certainly see that we essentially stack up as one of the best value for both the installer and the customer. So we spoke about the capacity here, right? So on average, higher throughput, higher kWh in a single form factor as well, right? So all of this basically means that your installed price per kWh is certainly going to be comparable, if not lower, than other battery solutions there. Uh, I don't think we need to speak more about the warranty here, but I guess a quick note here to make is we mentioned it's 15 years or 60 megawatt hours. The 15-year timeline essentially starts off from the time the system was actually commissioned. So that's when the clock starts ticking. And we also provide homeowners access to the megawatt hours, which is the system throughput. So they have access to both years and system throughput on their app. So that way they can certainly keep an eye on what they're doing. But again, 60 megawatt hours is a lot of throughput. These batteries are actually built to support in excess of 2 decades. The warranty is for 15 years, but again, at that 15th year mark, you're still looking at about 65 to 70% of battery capacity still remaining. So the useful life of these batteries is slightly over 2 decades if you really think about that. But again, post that 15-year mark is when you lose the access to warranty. So we spoke about this again, noise free, right? No fans here. Typically, what you would observe, especially in places where you do see temperatures hitting 40 Celsius and higher, you'll see a lot of other batteries have fans that actually kick in. And with fans, with one, two, or three fans, we've seen three fans in some of the batteries as well. You are not only seeing those fans working really hard, but you're also noticing that these fans do create sound. So if you have batteries installed outdoor and your neighbor's not too far, you are certainly going to have your neighbor who's not going to be happy, right? So again, with the aPower 2 and the aPower S, we do not have any moving parts, less risk of failure. Again, we've redesigned the entire heatsink on these batteries. And again, another reason why our batteries are actually heavier, because there's no moving parts on these fans. The entire heatsink with molded aluminum has been redesigned to support those temperature ranges that we spoke about. And that's one reason why the battery is actually heavy. Yep, good for Canadian winters as well as Arizonian summers. We do have a white paper which we published. Again, that white paper is for the previous generation of the battery, which also had a heating blanket, but was a 400-watt heating blanket on the 2 and the S. We do have a slightly more powerful heating blanket, which also means we're not going to be running that often. But yeah, we have a white paper available on our documentation center. Please download that. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me or David to run through that. But again, it's a really reliable unit. It can be put outdoor and installed outdoors. Again, the only thing I would suggest is certainly plan for your install, right? If you've noticed this place has seen negative 20 degrees Celsius more common, right? Or it's going to be multiple days in a year during winter, which does happen. You certainly want to find a spot indoors for those batteries because all you would start observing when you do see those low temperatures hit is you would see that the batteries will see a duration in the charging behavior. So it will not be able to absorb 8 kW of power, especially at 0 degrees Celsius or negative 15 degrees Celsius. There's no impact to the discharge capability. So the batteries will still put out 10 kW, 11.5 kW continuous power output, even at negative 19 degrees Celsius, right? But again, beyond if the temperatures do fall below negative 20 degrees Celsius, the batteries will automatically shut down for safety, and the batteries will automatically also come online once the cell temperatures recover and they are within the temperature range. So no intervention necessarily required by the installer or the homeowner when it comes to having the battery deliver, especially during winter times. And so we spoke a lot about those hardware features, but personally to me, my favorite feature about the Franklin solution is the fact that you can actually change lights on these batteries. So these lights are actually not gimmicky. These lights are actually an indicator of the real state of charge of the battery. So if it's all the way to the top, it basically means the battery is at 100% SOC. If it's all the way to the bottom, it means your battery is completely depleted. You have no charge in your battery, right? If the battery is blinking and going up, it means that the battery is charging either from PV or the grid, or could be generator, right? And if it's doing the other way around, it basically means the battery is discharging to the home loads. So at this point, that LED indicator has almost become the face of the brand, right? You can change the lights on these, and Christmas is coming, so you can certainly change the Christmas colors. You can change the intensity of the light as well. So if you have a dimmer, you can certainly dim that. You can put them on a schedule as well. So a lot of flexibility here, a lot of features when it comes to even the LED strip that we actually have on both the aPower 2 and the aPower S units. Again, the only difference that you would see from outside on the aPower 2 and the S unit is the aPower S does have this S logo, which is not on the aPower 2. But again, if you see both those units from the outside, it's kind of difficult to tell them apart. Sweet. So another one, I think in the earlier introduction, I mentioned I'm actually passionate about virtual power plants. I really see this is where the industry is actually headed. I feel utilities need help, and behind the meter assets like batteries are certainly the best solution available for utilities. We are on multiple virtual power plant programs throughout the US. We are right now in discussions with BC Hydro and Hydro One on some of their upcoming virtual power plant programs. So stay tuned. But again, just for context, we are on as many as 12 plus VPP programs. We have close to about 4,000 plus batteries that are actually participating in VPP programs all through the US. We are certainly waiting on hopping on our very first VPP program in Canada. Again, if you are an installer who is equally passionate about VPPs and sees the value and are actually involved in these discussions with the utility, please loop me in. I am happy to work with you and the utility to ensure that we are actually working on a well-structured VPP program that's going to be beneficial for customers as well as installers who are actually going to be installing these batteries on these programs. So please feel to reach out to me when it comes to VPP programs. Again, once you're on the VPP program, the enrollment is really straightforward, right? We really care about the UI, UX, and the app experience for the homeowners. So VPP enrollment is typically going to be through the Franklin app. You're going to see a virtual power plant option show up under the settings tab. Going to fill out the basic information and then enroll on the program. And from then on, your batteries are going to start participating, supporting the grid, and you are going to receive monetary benefits or a bill credit, however it's structured, in return of sharing your battery with the utility. So pretty cool program. We've worked on, like I said, a lot of programs here in the US. So we can certainly talk through what we've seen, what are some of the big wins that we've observed in the US market, and what's something that the Canadian utilities are actually looking at as well, because we've been involved in some of these early conversations with them. So just to summarize here on the aPower S here. So the aPower S is our pure play on DC coupled battery solution, which is capable of AC coupling as well. The aPower S is going to let you add up to 20 kW of PVDC to a single aPower S unit, which means you have 4 MPPTs, 15 amps per string. It is a 15 kilowatt hours of total energy capacity. The aPower S can certainly be AC coupled with the aPower 2 unit that gives you added capacity as well as kW. So you certainly have access to that when it comes to system expansion. Reliability is at the core. So both the aPower 2 and the S unit have a 15-year no cycle count, 60 megawatt hours of throughput. And again, end of the day, we are certainly focused on safety, reliability, and energy freedom, right? So we use lithium iron phosphate cells on the aPower S unit as well as the aPower 2 unit, which are operational in negative 20 degrees Celsius to 55 degrees Celsius, right? And all of this basically ensures that these batteries can be installed indoors as well as outdoors. I just want to quickly breeze through aHub because I want to share some time for questions here. But the aHub is essentially what we are going to be launching in the Canadian market first half of next year. The aHub is essentially going to be your solution to landing load management or generator or excess PV solutions. So this is what the aHub looks like. The aHub gives you access to 4 ports. The 4 ports can be configurable in any fashion. So if you want load management solution for your customers because you see that they have a lot of heavy loads and they would need monitoring of these heavy loads, you can configure these 4 ports as smart circuits. If you have generators, which I know a lot of customers in Ontario and Quebec, I've worked with a lot of installers and customers who have existing whole home or portable generators. You want to integrate that to the Franklin solution, no problem. Port 4 is dedicated for generator integration, so you can certainly land that generator and add that generator as that third layer of resiliency during an outage. So PV, battery, if none of them are available, then you have access to the generator that can manage your home loads as well as charge the Franklin battery. You could also land AC coupled PV, especially if you have scenarios where you're actually dealing with, PV on a detached structure and it's really far off. You can certainly land that PV to the Franklin solution here. So again, it's a really flexible and adaptable solution here, especially when it comes to uh, more features that you're expecting out of the Franklin solution. The aHub, like I said, is an additional accessory. So you'd have to work with Charge Solar procuring the aHub. But again, for any Franklin install, all you need is one agate, one aPower S or one aPower 2 unit, and then the Franklin app. Just 3 things which are bare minimum requirements for any Franklin install. I'll skip through some of these slides. We can certainly have a dedicated session on aHub and the Mac. But again, just wanted to give you a quick update here. A lot of what we discussed today is also available on our training and certification center. So we have the QR code here. If you are not certified yet, or if anyone from Charge Solar, you're working with an installer who's interested about the Franklin system and wants to get certified, that certainly is step one. So please get certified. Please go to the online training. And once you've done with that, please find time on my or David Tobin or our RSM's calendar. We are more than happy to set time with you and go through your upcoming project. We also review single line diagrams for you at no cost for lifetime. So please send them over to me or David. Happy to review your single line diagrams just so that you're well prepared for your first job. But probably with that, I'll pause. And yeah, David, do you have any questions that we should be addressing or any other questions that anyone wants to bring up?
There was a question about the 15 amp continuous and what happens above 15 amps.
15 amps on the IMP?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have modules which have IMP in excess of 15 amp, we are going to be limiting it to the 15 amps. So we have a few bifacial modules or larger modules which have 17 or 18 amps. Again, at that point, all you get access to is going to be 15 amps. So it's going to be limited by the MPPTs here. The only thing I would suggest here is from a design standpoint, just keep in mind that your string voltages and your design voltages are still within that acceptable range, which is 60 volts to 600 volt DC, which is the overall VOCs there. But again, for your, I think it's 90 to 480, right, David? As far as the VMP ranges go. for our system?
Yeah, 90 to 480.
All right, awesome. Anything else, David, that you want to add there on the 15 amps as well?
Nope, we're good there. So we do have a string level MPPT. So if we start getting above 15 amps, we will probably self-limit it down to 15 and probably just adjust the voltage up. So you might actually still get the same power that you're hoping to get. Because if you just adjust voltage times amperage, you get kilowatts. So by lowering the amperage, we can raise voltage. So we can still get to your power. There's a question about whether the main lugs would accept aluminum conductors. The answer is yes. Fronius rapid shutdown box, as long as it's a normal closed type of e-stop that when you hit the button or twist it, it'll open up the circuit. It will act as a EPO. Someone's going to be commissioning their first aPower S here this Friday. Congratulations.
Awesome. Yeah, reach out to us if you have any questions or to us directly, shoot us an email, call us, or you can also get in touch with our support line and we can certainly walk you through the commissioning if you need any support. But that's exciting.
Another question was whether the A-gate was service entrance rated in Canada.
That's an interesting one. We can, certainly warrants a longer discussion. But yeah, if you're looking for specific UL certifications, if this is what your ESA is actually looking for, we do have UL 69 and 414, which is essentially the certifications for service entrance listing. In some cases, I've seen utilities essentially combat that as well. So let's work on that one. Please email us, and we can certainly help you on that front.
Cool. And then there's a question about the heating logic. Does it always running when below 0
Yeah.
degrees?
Yeah. So yeah, it certainly can talk through on that one because that's probably more relevant. So the heating blanket is not always running. We've certainly optimized. So we have temperature thresholds on when the heating blanket should come online. We also have thresholds based off the mode of operation of the battery. So is it on self-consumption, time of use, emergency backup? And then we also have broadly, is it grid connected or is it off grid? So it's a complicated logic. We can certainly share more information, but again, just for peace of mind, the heating blanket has been designed and optimized for performance so that it's not drawing a lot of power from the grid or from the PV or the battery if it has to.
Yep. And the reason why that is because we only need to be at cell temp for charging. We don't need to be, we can be cold and still discharge.
Yeah, actually that's a great point, David, that you brought up because I don't drive an EV yet. My cousin does, but he always tells me about preconditioning the EV during winters before he gets to a Tesla supercharger or any level 2+ charger. And I think the same analogy can be put in place for residential stationary storage solutions as well. So what I mean by that is if you think you're going to be experiencing a really cold chill, you can actually have the battery discharge for a few minutes because a discharge cycle will generate enough heat to improve your cell temperatures by a few delta points. Again, this means you're going to be keeping a constant eye on your battery. But again, I know some homeowners do that. So that's the concept of preconditioning. So you can certainly do that to prevent any form of deration when it comes to accepting charge. But again, with battery discharge at those temperature ranges, you are not going to find any deviation with what the battery is going to be discharging.
Cool. And then that was the majority of the questions. We got 3 new questions coming in. What is
Love you guys. Greg, thank you so
too.
much. We love you too. Appreciate that. The heating question scenario is for off-grid and only heat before sunrise to get PV charge. Yeah, so off-grid is kind of interesting. That's a great question. Off-grid, especially when you have them in non-PV hours, the only source for the heating blanket is now going to be the battery. So if the battery is at really low state of charge, we would deactivate the heating blanket because we don't want this to be parasitic in nature. It's basically going to wait until PV comes up, charges the battery, and then uses the PV for the heating blanket. But yeah, off-grid is certainly more complicated than grid connected. why don't you email me? I'll shoot you my email address and we can talk through for your off-grid system, how you should be designing and what you should be expecting as well when it comes to your system.
Yep.
Sweet. Tatum, should we drop our emails on the chat or Q&A, or should we just do it on the follow-up emails to all our
Yeah, if you want to pop it into the chat, you can. Just make sure that
chat?
it's being sent to everyone, and then everyone should be able to see that. I can also include it on the follow-up email.
Okay, sweet.
Another follow-up question, PV array oversizing.
Follow-up question on PV oversizing along with max settings. Are there any limits on short circuit current available from each spring? Not sure if I understand that question. So are there any limits on short circuit? So ISC. I don't have the ISC limit on top of my head. I can
It's
certainly
20 amps.
20 amps.
50 amp continuous, 20 amps short circuit.
Perfect. Yep. So that is basically, yeah, so that's a good question. I'll certainly share the data sheet and the install guide, and we also have a little bit of training collateral on our training center. But yes, 15 amps is the IMP, 20 amps is the ISC. So you're going to be designing, and then obviously the threshold voltage is going to be 60 to 600 volt. So you're certainly going to be keeping those when it comes to designing your system. A lot of great questions of that. Sweet.
All right, we'll give it a few more moments just for anybody to type in their last minute questions. But thank you, Abby and David, for your informative presentation. And thank you for everyone joining us today. And then as a reminder, this webinar recording will be shared with everyone within a few days, and it will be added to our YouTube channel as well. So I'll just pop that link into the chat so you have it. And it looks like we might have gotten one more question as well.
Yes. Is there a way to remote rapid shutdown switch? Jason, if you're referring to an EPO, yes, you can certainly do that. The aPower S also has I mean, again, depending on how you're setting up your system, but we also have the power button on the aPower S, which could also basically de-energize the system, so to say. But yes, you certainly do have the option of the EPO with both the aPower S and the aPower 2. Please work with your local AHJ or the utility with regards to if they accept that. I've seen in certain jurisdictions, they preferred to have a physical blade type disconnects. So certainly want to ensure that you have that taken care of. But yes, there should be a way to do that.
Yeah. And it helps that you have a RSD system installed on every panel to actually bring that voltage down. So if you were to go with a ground mount array and not have any RSD, I would do like some sort of fused disconnects per string.
Ooh, that's a good point, David. Yeah, especially for non-RSD configurations.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if there's no more questions, thank you guys again for joining. And yeah, look out for that email coming from us in a few days. Thanks so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. And thank you,
Thank you.
Tatum, and the Chart Solar team. Really appreciate the opportunity here.